This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome into the practice squad, and Strohs is going to make me talk hockey to start a show. What are you doing to me?
Look, you were angry last week, and this week we're doing hockey. This is good. And look, we get to spend time with our good buddy, Paulie. He's going to join the show. He's going to give us a lowdown on what Steve Yzerman's been up to. This is going to be great, man. It's going to be a good show.
Paul's been on before, and I am happy to have him again. I think this is probably the second time we've ever done Red Wings, so Paul might just be a requirement for Red Wings.
He is our Red Wings insider. If you didn't know, now you know.
Before we get into it, I want to say one thing. I heard the other day that the Red Wings cut Justin Abdelkader.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Abdelkader has been on the Red Wings long enough to be my most recent favorite Red Wing. I don't think I've had one of those since at least 2013.
Your most recent favorite Red Wing?
Yes.
So who was it before him?
I don't know, man. I've never really been a hockey guy. I don't know. I remember the early to mid-teens Red Wings that weren't actually Stanley Cup contenders. Like, I'm specifically thinking of the year that they challenged the Blackhawks, should have won that series. You had some young pieces who were I don't know if that Abdelkader was new to that team, but very like first couple years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I saw them at that time as someone who never really cared that much about hockey as the future. Obviously, that never panned out. Hold on. Thinking that in 2013 was reasonable.
You remind me of my buddy Brad, who used to tell me how Jimmy Howard was the future of the Detroit Red Wings.
He literally ended up being the future.
Well, he was, but he was like, Jimmy Howard is the future. He's going to be great. And then he got here, and I was kind of like, he's kind of an average goalie. He's not great. He's a guy who has pads and he can play the position.
Abdelkader and what was it, Darren Helm? They were kind of coming up at the same time. I looked at them as the future. Oh, that's a bad team. That's not what we're here to talk about. We're not here to talk about a bad Red Wings getting cut. We're here to talk about the NHL Draft, which I guess happened recently. So, yeah, we bring on Paul McPherson to talk about that with us.
Yes, it happened recently.
Did you enjoy the draft,
maybe.
Paul?
It happened on Tuesday.
Just as the other. You sound like Drew as well. You sound like Drew with like, that giraffe's a thing? What?
Speaking of Drew, Jim Costa messaged a group chat I'm in, something that he was excited about in the NHL Draft. And I replied, wait, the NHL is still standing? I swear they went bankrupt.
That's something Drew would say, too. I'm not surprised at all about you saying that.
Look, when they're really good again, I'll enjoy watching a couple games in the playoffs. But hockey's not my thing, so I'm mostly going to let you guys take over. I may have a question. I'll say this. I have no idea who the Red Wings drafted. I know it was a high pick that should have been higher. That is the extent of my knowledge.
All right, so I will take over then. I will pilot this ship. Hopefully I don't crash. We'll see what happens. Okay. I'm not drunk at the wheel, at least not yet. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, yeah.
Paul, you are our Red Wing insider. Like, just putting it out there. Like, the only time we talk Red Wings is when you're on this show.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I need to stop something real quick.
What?
He's not our Red Wings insider.
He is.
Paul doesn't know anyone with the Red Wings, do you?
No, I do not.
Bro, he is connected like Dub and Mac 10. You don't know. Westside Connect. You don't know. This guy is so connected.
Our expert, I don't care, but I just want to clarify that he's not an insider.
He's our insider.
I wish I was an insider. That'd
for this podcast, he's our insider.
The label has a meaning, and I want you to respect it. Sorry, go on.
Paul is our expert insider. So, Paul, Red Wings drafting at 4 on Tuesday. They ended up taking Lucas Raymond out of one of the Swedish elite leagues. Tell us a little bit about this kid, because this wasn't the guy you had the Red Wings taking. You had them taking Jamie Drysdale, the defenseman. Was this a little bit of a shock for you? I mean, does he fit what Steve Yzerman wants to do, and are you seeing what Steve Yzerman wants to do? I feel like I just threw 8 questions at you, so pick one of them and just go.
I mean, if you'd asked me 2.5 months ago if this was a surprise, no. Actually, a few months ago when we found out we were picking 4th, he was a guy that I penciled in as this is the guy I would expect Yzerman to pick because he was playing professionally in Sweden, much like how Mo Seider was playing professionally in Germany. And I thought, you know what? I think Yzerman's going to like the guy who played against grown men rather than against kids in a junior league like a lot of the other top prospects. But as it got closer and closer to the draft, there was no one really talking about him. They were talking about Drysdale. They were talking a lot about Cole Perfetti, who was a kid who played for Saginaw in the OHL. They talked about Marco Rossi a bit, who had the Braden Point comparison, which is one of Yzerman's best ever picks. And we even heard some conversations about the goalie Askarov, who we might get into later. I'm not sure if you're going to ask me about that or not. But Raymond was a guy I was like, I'm just not hearing anything about him. But when we took him, I was thrilled. He's a great skater. You know, one thing he's really great at is just being able to change speeds at will and use that to beat defenders. He's got fantastic hands, but maybe the best thing about him is his hockey IQ, and especially in the offensive zone. He's great at finding passing lanes. He's great at creating space. He's great at scoring. Like, his scoring touch is some of the best. He actually just played today for his Swedish pro team and scored a goal where he just came in from the left wing, just cut in from across the top of the circle, and then just rifled one top corner past the goalie. And that's a similar goal we saw to him scoring in the junior championships a couple of years ago. But he is an elite offensive talent. There are people saying he was the third best offensive player. I tend to agree. I just think his pure offensive ability is great, and he has the effort on the defensive end. He's not an elite defender by any means, but he puts in the effort. And I think that's enough for Yzerman to go, you're going to put in the effort, so you're eventually going to be better because you're trying and you're going to put in the effort there. But what you're expecting out of this guy is, you know, at his peak, he could be a 40, maybe even 50 goal scorer, but he's also a guy who can put up 65 assists as well because he just is really great as both a playmaker and a goal scorer.
So Paul does a bunch of great work. We probably should have mentioned this early on. Writes for Overtime Heroic Hockey. Earlier in the year, you did a bit of a recap, and actually you ended up messaging me right before the draft. And you thought they were going to take Drysdale. And I think one of the surprising things about them taking Lucas Raymond was this was a guy who early in the year, probably around the same time that we had you on before to kind of discuss draft picks and who they might take with the 4th overall selection. I believe he was the 4th overall European skater. So he was highly thought of. And then as the season has kind of gone on, he fell a little bit. Do you think that kind of hurt him? And do you think that might have been the reason why other people who don't follow hockey as closely were a little bit surprised that the Red Wings ended up selecting him?
Oh, absolutely. And part of that comes from where he was playing. As I mentioned, he was playing in the Swedish Pro League. So if you look at his stats, you go, really? That's all he did? This is this elite goal scorer that the Red Wings got? But he was a 17-year-old playing on a pro team as a 4th liner. Like, he was playing less than 10 minutes a game. Like, I think it was about a year ago, he was considered the top guy behind Lafreniere. And within a year, he wasn't considered that anymore because it was hard to scout a guy who's playing under 10 minutes a game at a pro level. So I think that definitely, you know, lowered the stock and definitely made people a little bit surprised when they took him because there were so many great options this draft. This is one of the deepest drafts we've ever seen. You know, you could see anyone from that like 4 to 11 or maybe even 4 to 12 range going in the top 10. So it wasn't entirely a surprise, but at the same time, it would have probably been more expected if he hadn't had that time in the pro league where he just wasn't featured as much as he could have been.
So you talked about how deep it was. Everybody thought that the Red Wings might go defense. A puck-moving defenseman is something that has hampered this team, especially on the blue line, for what feels like ever and a day now.
Yeah.
Day 2 rolls around, and in the second round, Red Wings go out and get their defenseman. Tell us a little bit about this guy and what you think he brings to the team.
Well, William Wallander is a puck-moving defenseman, but unlike Drysdale, who's a little bit smaller, he is big. 6'4", same size around as Seider, who they drafted last year. Only he can skate a little bit better, and his puck movement is great. He likes to jump into the rush with the forwards. He likes to get in there with the forwards, lead the rush even with the puck, and take the forwards into the zone. That's something that's very much becoming more common in the NHL. You know, a lot of the better offensive defense in the NHL, they do that now. The Cale Makars and Quinn Hughes, who were the 2 top rookies this past year, both were those kind of players, and that's what Wallander does. But again, he's 6'4". A guy who's that tall and also skates as well as he does is so good to see as a defenseman. And he also can play the two-way game. Like, he's not a bad defender either. He'll need to improve a little bit on it, but at the same time, you can rely on him to use his big body. He's going to put muscle on much the same way Seider did. Seider put on like 25 pounds of muscle when he got to Grand Rapids. So I would expect Wallander to do the same thing. But that's the kind of guy you were looking for to add to this team, a more of a puck mover guy, a guy who can maybe set up the power play a little bit offensively, but you can rely on him to make good passes in the offensive zone consistently.
So I want to talk a little bit. I know we've been kind of hammering the draft a little bit, but we would be remiss to not talk about what Steve Yzerman did leading up to this draft. This is a draft where he acquired a bunch of picks. He ended up saying, look, we're not going to give Jimmy Howard a contract. We're not bringing Applicator back. He made a bunch of tough decisions on a lot of guys who have been in that room. And I think you can kind of see the hard reset coming here. So I want to talk about them going out and getting a guy like Mark Stahl and acquiring that second-round pick. What do you think that means for this team?
For me, that tells me he wanted another veteran defenseman in there that can still play a little bit, but mainly that he wanted to try getting to the cap floor as well, while also adding stock to the picks. Adding Stahl's contract. This team has a lot of uncontracted players at the moment. They're still trying to field the full roster at the moment. They still have some restricted free agents they need to re-sign. They obviously cut a lot of players. Obviously, the buyout of Applicator, a bunch of other players are just gone, like Daly, Erickson, Howard. It was something that they really needed to be able to make sure they hit that floor. Added a veteran defenseman presence to help the younger guys. Phil Peronic had a decent year last year, but he had his moments where he struggled. He was our best defenseman, but that was because the defense was horrible. Mo Seider, you would expect to be in the NHL next year. Having that veteran presence installed, especially when you lose a bunch of veteran presence in, like losing Green and losing Erickson and all them, it's nice to have that veteran voice in there. And Stahl will bring that. But again, it helps with the cap, and it adds more stock to your draft picks for the future because Yzerman's a guy who loves lottery tickets, and the more he has in those mid rounds, the more likely he's going to hit on one of them or two of them or more. So I think that's more what it was, just trying to add that stock. But that veteran presence is something that won't be, it will be very welcome in the locker room.
All right, so you both know, you both know that you're basically speaking another language to me. I want to jump in with one question and then ask you guys, knowing this isn't a hockey podcast, is there anything else important we need to get to? I need to go back to the draft for just a second. How long is it before anybody from this draft is playing with the Red Wings?
I mean, the quickest time will be Raymond. We'll see how quick that is. He, as I mentioned, he's playing with his Swedish pro team right now, and I believe he's contracted through the end of the season, so he does have to see that season out, which will be till early March, depending on how long the playoffs go as well. So there's a potential we could see him at the end of this season with the Red Wings if he's good enough in the pro league where we go, you know what, he's ready.
Is that something the team does now? Because I know that was a knock in the past. They were slow to move guys along.
I mean, it varies. Like Dylan Larkin was someone who I don't think ever played a regular season game in Grand Rapids. When he came from U of M and we signed him on, I think he might have played in the playoff run for Grand Rapids. And then that next year, he was with the big club. Like he was right there. He did not play any time in Grand Rapids. So it wouldn't surprise me if we saw it with Raymond. He's the highest, drafted player we've had since Yzerman. It's something that the Red Wings in the past didn't do. But if he is good enough, I think they'll look and go, you know what, you are ready. If not, he'll probably spend the rest of the year with Grand Rapids, but by 2021, 22, he'll be right with the team.
All right, we do got to get to some Matthew Stafford talk and some nostalgia talk coming up here in just a minute. But Strohs, I don't want to completely cut you off. Is there anything super important we need to get to before we move on?
Yeah, so with the draft pick of Raymond, does he automatically slot in as the best prospect for the Detroit Red Wings?
Oh, 100% to me. I think he's definitely the best one. Seider is great. He's our current number one guy, I would say, and he's great as a defensive defenseman. But what Raymond is able to do on the offensive game, there's no other player in Detroit that does that. Zadina's the next best forward one. He's a goal scorer. He can get some assists, but he's a goal scorer. Raymond is by far the most complete offensive prospect we have, and maybe the most complete one we've had in a long time in Detroit.
All right, so guys, if you want more incredible hockey knowledge, guys, check out Paul. Paul is on Twitter at PaulieMac7. Also, check out all of his great work at Overtime Heroic Hockey. You can check them out on Twitter at hockey_OTH. Does a lot of great work, a ton of great insight. So check him out. Give him a good follow.
Now, Paul's going to stick around with us because I thought this next segment would go really well with three people. I initially mentioned it as a draft, but Strohs is an old man, so I don't think we're going to have too much competition here. Me and Paul may have some overlay. Look, honestly, the reason I thought of this initially is because when Van Halen died, listening to some people talk about him and hearing how big of a blow it was for them and the nostalgia that his music brings to them, it kind of made me think of nostalgia. But even more so, Strohs, I know that this period of 6-7 months, whatever you want to look at, has been tough for a lot of people. And I think that that's a time when you really look back on nostalgia. So I thought this would be fun. And what we're going to do is a all nostalgia team. We will do it in draft format just to be safe. Does anyone care about the order?
No,
Let Paul go first since he's a guest.
Yeah, for sure.
Then Strohs can go, and then I'll go. We're all going to pick 3 things, and our pool is basically anything. I don't care if the straight you grew up on is what is part of your all nostalgia team. Everything is in play. I just thought it'd be fun. And like I said, after this, I have some concerns about Matthew Stafford. I want to get to them, but let's have some fun first. I think this is a great segment to be involved in on social media. I already put the tweet out there at Brendan Riley _ at Adam R. Strohs. Your all nostalgia team. Top 3 things. Paul, we'll let you go first.
All right, so the first one is definitely the easiest one for me. I'm glad I get to go first because I actually thought Strohs might take this for me if he got to go before me. But for me, the 2001-2002 Detroit Red Wings. That team was the first team I remember watching all the time. I remember them adding all these legends. Brett Hull being added to the team. Luc Robitaille being there. Hasek was there. This is a team that really, I fully watched them. I was 8 years old, and I'm like, I'm in love with this team, and I watched them win a cup, and it was just a bunch of old men who were just so good. They were so good, and they were so old.
I'm going to tell you something about that team that's probably going to blow you both away. I cried when they won the Stanley Cup.
Were you getting laid at that time? And were you more sad or more happy because you were getting laid?
Paul.
Oh, okay. I just checking.
No, I don't think I watched the team before the playoffs, but I fell in love with Hasek in that run. Like I think I started to love the sport of hockey exclusively because of the way he played goalie. I remember asking for a Hasek jersey for Christmas, and my dad, who knew sports, was like, "That doesn't make any sense." The guy not been a Red Wing before. He won't be a Red Wing after this. So they didn't buy me a jersey because my dad didn't think it made sense. Eventually they did because I was still at him and I wanted one. Honestly, Dominik Hasek he's probably my first ever favorite athlete. Definitely my first favorite Red Wing. Unfortunately, I didn't love sports in that way. I was just a little kid who loved a man and was so happy to see him win a championship that I cried. Also remember my dad telling me if they won, he was probably going to retire, and if he lost, they might come back. So I think some of me was crying because I thought he was gone. But I appreciate that one.
Yeah, I mean, with the jersey thing, my favorite player was Brendan Shanahan at the time, but I did not have a Shanahan jersey. But when Hull came in, I asked for a Brett Hull jersey. So he had never been a Red Wing either, but I want a Brett Hull jersey. Shanahan's my favorite, but holy crap, this Brett Hull guy is so good. I want his jersey. So I was the same as you there.
Side note on Brendan Shanahan. Paul, can you see this coffee mug right here?
I can.
You can.
I can see it.
So Brendan Shanahan is working with equipment about this thick.
Okay.
And it is like long like my forearm. He got a big old wiener. So I got some insider knowledge on that one.
That's insider, Strohs.
It was totally insider. My buddy's seen it. He was at a bar. He was at Dick O'Dow's in Birmingham and seen it. He said it was massive. So Paul, I was gonna go with Steve Yzerman, but I feel like since you took the Red Wings, they have to come off the board now, and you really have me scrambling here because Steve Yzerman, and I think I've showed you parts of my condo before where it's just adorned. I have like a wall that just is like homage to Stevie Y. Mm-hmm. So I feel like you taking, the 2001 Red Wings team removes them from the board. I'm gonna go with the Pontiac Silverdome. Now, the Pontiac Silverdome was a complete dump. All right, but I have this great childhood memory. My dad somehow scored tickets to the Silverdome. It was a Detroit Lions game versus Minnesota. I'm almost positive the Lions lost. But I got to watch Barry Sanders do some pretty incredible things as a child. That was my first football game I ever attended. And the Silverdome was absolutely crazy. Like, you would have Lions fans fighting Lions fans, and then those two guys who were beating each other up would go and try to beat up a Minnesota Vikings fan. It was absolutely insane. And I just remember being so overjoyed. I remember sitting in this hard plastic seat that was super uncomfortable, being surrounded by a bunch of drunk people that were acting absolutely insane. Also, the Silverdome would have this thing where you could get your skates, you could go skate the Silverdome, and I participated in that a couple times, and that was great as a child as well. So I'm going to go Pontiac Silverdome for my number one overall pick.
Paul, did you ever go to the Silverdome?
I never did. Nope. I actually went to my first Lions game just last year, so that's the same thing.
I mean, I've been to a lot of Lions games, but I didn't go to the Silverdome. I think my first Lions game probably would have been early to mid 2000s. No, probably mid 2000s. I don't think my parents. I know I went to Tiger Stadium. I don't think my parents wanted to take me to the Silverdome. I don't think they felt comfortable with taking a young child there.
Bro, it was crazy. Like, you needed to come with a knife, and you needed to come with maybe a machete to protect yourself.
All right.
Crazy.
So I don't know. I might have only one sports here. I don't know. I don't think you guys are going to challenge me a whole lot here. I'm going to go with one that I think Paul will appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually going to go with Pokemon.
Yes.
Series of Pokemon.
Yes.
I've said this. I've shared this with many people before. I think my imagination as a kid growing up was like centered around Pokemon. It was like the idea of collecting a team of monsters and turn-based battles. And I mean, I guess it's not to suggest Pokemon is the only game to ever use this style, but it's the one that I grew up playing. I enjoyed the TV show. I enjoyed collecting the cards. I have played the card game, but I didn't enjoy it. In my adult life, I've not actually gone back and done this, but I would say until I moved to Grand Rapids 4 years ago, I couldn't go a full 365 days without pulling out one of the original Pokemon games.
Do you play Pokemon Go still?
Oh, God, no. I haven't played Pokemon Go in a long time. Pokemon Go, maybe an off-podcast story. I played a lot of Pokemon Go.
Me too.
And I did love it for what it was. I don't think it's something I could ever go back onto. But just Pokemon as a whole, to me, very, very nostalgic.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, did you play Pokemon Go?
We actually added each other at one point, but then...
Oh, yeah, we did.
Yeah, when I came back to the U.S., I still, until recently, like a month ago, I still was using an Australian phone just because I didn't want to buy a phone just to then go back to Australia. And so I couldn't use data anywhere. So I just went like a year without playing. And so I haven't touched it since I came back to the U.S.
Now, Paul, you play Pokemon competitively still?
Yes. There's a really cool format of it we call it draft format, when it's literally like sports combined with Pokemon. So like each Pokemon can only be drafted once. Each one has like a certain value. You're given a budget. You have to go and budget your team.
Yeah, I can see how cool that would be.
Oh, it's so fun. I've won a couple championships in leagues playing that way. I also met my girlfriend through playing Pokemon competitively, so that kind of worked out as well.
That is crazy.
That is awesome.
Like, my cousin met his girlfriend through World of Warcraft, and she moved from Florida to Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Meeting Pokemon, like, you've got to be one of very few people who've met a significant other through Pokemon.
I know like a couple others, but yeah, it's not like a huge amount.
Hell? You are blowing my mind. World of Warcraft like doesn't surprise me as much. Pokemon's like, because that's like a whole, like, I know people like their identity is in that game. Is Pokemon that way at a competitive level?
Yeah, especially like, well, because you get the YouTube community as well. You get the people who play it that way, and they meet through doing it that way. So I know a couple of friends, they met their significant others because they were both YouTubers, and they both then played against each other or were in similar things, and they live in the same country. Unlike me and my girlfriend, but
I didn't realize that there was such a community. But all right, how are we doing this? Let's just don't worry about the snake. We'll just keep going through. Paul, what's your second one?
Okay, so I have memories to being a child playing hockey and being in a hockey tournament, and we're in a championship game, and we're about to hit the ice, and I just hear the bell. AC/DC starts playing Hell's Bells as we hit the ice. AC/DC is my second round pick.
I love it. That's great.
There's some level of nostalgia to that song for me, but it's actually all about third downs at Lions games.
See, I also had it with like K-Wings games as well. I went to Kalamazoo Wings, Michigan K-Wing games as a kid, so I heard it there. But that like first ever championship game and hearing that bell tone, like that was just, it stuck with me. And we ended up winning that game, and that to this day, that's what I connect that song to. But that band in general, like so many of those songs I'd hear at hockey games, and it was just, they stuck with me.
I've said many times going to live football games is my single favorite form of entertainment. And I can't tell you, like, specifically thinking back to the 2014 team, like late in the playoff chase, you have a chance to win the division, third down and 7 in the fourth quarter, and that song's playing. Like, it's definitely a song that, like, I can see how it burns a specific memory into your brain. I get it.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It just is, like, I remember, like, writing, like, a poem when I was in middle school about that game. and including that part, like that song was playing in it. Like that's what just stuck with me. It just stuck with me. I think
that song can give you goosebumps with if the memory associated with it does.
Oh yeah, 100%.
All right, Strohs.
All right, so you guys are probably going to think I'm disgusting for this, but
oh no,
what strip club are you picking?
It's not a strip club. It's not. So this is. I actually think it is kind of gross, but it reminds me of my grandmother. Right. The smell of menthol cigarettes in the summertime. So my grandma used to smoke a lot. And like every now and then, like there's this certain smell that you'll get from them when the summer breeze kind of catches it just right. And it just reminds me of my grandma. So
I don't think so. I definitely thought you were going in a way different direction. I don't have a problem with that.
So I threw a curveball to you.
I'm thankful that cigarettes don't bring back any memories for me, but I can very much see how that would do that.
Look, I am a child of the 80s, and that's how old I am. Everybody smoked in the 80s. Like everybody. It was nuts. My dad used to smoke like a chimney. Gave it all up. He's doing better now, but man, it was crazy.
So I'm going to go with a song here. And I think for somebody my age, it's almost like cliche for me to pick this song. Let me stop there. Do either of you have a guess as to what this song is? 27-year-old, a nostalgic song. Not enough information?
Is it going to be All Star by Smash Mouth?
You know what's funny? No. But as I asked the question, I thought that was a really good answer. It's definitely up there. No. So my memory that's tied to it isn't as fitting, but it's Mr. Brightside by, I believe that's the Killers.
That's my favorite song of all time, actually.
And it's funny because as I was driving home, knowing we were doing this topic, I had to turn the song on. And I realized, like, you think you know all the words to a lot of songs. I don't know if I actually know all the words to any, like, very many songs. I very much know all the words to Mr. Brightside. And it's funny because for me, just going to be totally real here, it takes me back to, like, early middle school and, like, my childhood crush. Like, listening to this song and thinking about my childhood crush. And the reason, like, it's just, like, such a simple time, right? Like, nothing real about it. And I love, like, I didn't really know what I liked in music until my mid to late 20s, but I love that era of like pop punk.
Oh, same.
And I don't even think I don't know if I could name 5 songs by the Killers, but I think Mr. Brightside just takes me to such a simple time in my life. Like, I think middle school is where I peaked. A lot of people peak in high school, but in middle school I had no
peaked in middle school. The pubes haven't come in yet, and I'm already at the top of the mountain, guys. It's all downhill from here.
I'm still waiting on mine. Like, Bees is in middle school.
All right. What's up for your third one, Paul?
All right. So this is, Pokemon, obviously, I played a lot of when I was a kid. But I think there's one game that surpasses it in amount of time I spent playing it.
NHL 94.
No, it's Mario Kart.
Oh.
I put so many hours into Mario Kart 64. I cannot even tell you. I did all the battles all the time with my brothers. I would just do Grand Prix if they weren't around. That was a game I just spent so much time playing. And it's one I've played like every version of it since. I used to play the Mario Kart on my Game Boy Color. I would do the time trials on that because I wanted to beat all the time trials. And then like I got to college and there was a Mario Kart Wii tournament for our dorm. I won that. And like it just kept, I still stick with it now, but Mario Kart 64 probably has more hours put into it than any other game I've ever played in my life. And so to this day, it's just my favorite.
I love Mario Kart, but I can't imagine that being among my top hours played. Like you run out of things to do.
I was like 5, 6, 7 years old when I was playing it. And it was just my favorite at the time. I was easily entertained. I was a young child.
I'm trying to think. There are probably a lot of N64 games that would do it for me. Star Fox would be in the conversation.
That was a great game.
I mean, I liked Mario Kart, but man, I will say I remember when Mario Kart brought out, like in the Wii, they brought out like the steering wheels. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world.
Oh yeah. I definitely use those. There are people who are like, "Why do you use it? Just use the nunchuck and controller." I'm like, "Cause it's way cooler this way."
It's so cool. It's still to this day, it's a great party game. Like, I'm not going to sit down and play that for 5 hours, which there are games I'll do that with. But to play it for a couple hours, like with friends at a party, very cool.
Oh, yeah. Beerio Kart. Like, I suck at chugging beer, but that's still a fun time to play.
That's how you get Strohs to play Mario Kart.
Yes. 100%.
All right, Strohs, what's your last one?
Look, I used to play a lot of Mario Kart with my cousins because they lived for that game, probably much like Paul did. So I'm not too bad. I'm not great. Paul will probably wipe the floor with me. You will too, be, but you never know. All right, so for my last pick, this is going to be very, very specific. It is the parking lot at my grade school. So Our Lady Queen of Apostles, it was the parking lot. We used to play a lot of street hockey there, a lot of ball hockey. This is one of the places where I had one of my first kisses. This is one of the places where
I knew when you said a freaking parking lot, something went down there that wasn't hockey.
I got kicked in the head with an inline skate and had to go get 3 stitches in my head. This is a place where I got into multiple fights. Some I won, some I got my shit pushed in. This was a place where I basically grew up, and a lot of my friends that I had there, I still talk to this day, and we still reminisce about those weird times. So, Q of A parking lot.
I haven't lived in the city I grew up in 4 years now, but I do remember walking around at my elementary school, like in college age, and there is something about that. Like I didn't ever go there and hang out when I wasn't in school, but I don't know. There's something about that elementary school. And like I picked a song from middle school that like it is like it's just a different time. Like something takes you back there. I get that with elementary school.
Everything was like super simple. So like I had to clean up dog poop as a chore every day after school and make sure my homework was done. That was it. Like it was easy. Like just go do these things and make sure you're home for dinner. And then if mom needs something, help her out. Simple. Life was easy.
What I specifically remember? I towards the later part of my elementary school, I would walk home because I lived very close, and I would walk with my brother. And when you're in elementary school, like it's your job to annoy your brother, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one day walking home from school, coming up with a song, and like being at my elementary school, like walking towards where my dad lives now, and where I grew up. It literally brings back the memory of the song, and I know all the lyrics. It is literally, I need some water. Need lots of water. I need some water or I'm going to die. And I would sing that on the way home. And my brother would get furious. Talk about simple.
I feel like you should get off the phone or once we're done with this, get on the phone with your brother and just sing it to him.
I don't think he'd remember it.
You should find out.
I really need to know if he would remember it. That would be so funny.
Can you call him right now? Can you call him right now and put him on speaker? Can we do this?
Do we really want to do this?
Yeah, let's do this.
Okay, give me a second. You might need to delete some dead time here. I don't even know.
We'll take care of it. I think this is going to be fantastic. I hope he remembers, and I hope he has like the most visceral reaction to this. Like he's just upset about it. I think this will be fantastic. I hope he picks up.
Oh, it'd be so funny.
Paul, do you have siblings?
I have 5 younger brothers and
Holy cow.
2 adopted younger sisters.
Jeez, that's a lot of kids, man. You have like a Brady bunch that you belong to.
Oh yeah. I was the oldest one. I also was doing the annoying stuff sometimes, but like there was all of us. Like we were all annoying each other. Like there were 4 of us within 4 years of each other. Like
what was the one thing you used to do to your brothers and sisters that would just annoy the crap out of them?
I can't even think. Like maybe do like hand farts.
All right. So how about this? He said he could call me back in a minute. I got one left.
Okay.
Let me ask you guys because I'm struggling here. Do I go sports or non-sports?
I feel like this segment lends itself always to non-sports. So I'm gonna say
I'm gonna go non-sports. I'm gonna go place. Mine's a lot more broad. And it probably makes me sound rich AF.
Bougie B. I love this. This is Bougie B.
My last one is Disney World. And I don't know if I've ever shared that on the podcast, but growing up, I went to Disney World at least once a year and sometimes twice.
Wow.
My mom had family in Orlando, and while we were there, we went to Disney. And there's so much to it. So you have the nostalgia of being young. You have the nostalgia of family. I went there with cousins sometimes, too. There's family there that I haven't seen in a long time. But also just because we went every year, it always became like that's what you were looking forward to. Like this much longer till the next Disney trip. I mean, I'm not kidding. I'm 27. I've probably been to Disney 17 or 18 times in my life. That might be a little high, but comfortably 15.
What was the favorite thing you would do at Disney?
What?
What was your favorite thing you would do at Disney? Like I've been to Disney one time, and I think Disney has Tower of Terror, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like my favorite thing that we did. And I would get off that ride and I'd jump back in line, get off that ride, jump back in line. I would ride it like 4 or 5 times. So my mom was like, we're done.
It spans from like the age of probably 5 or 6 to like the age of 16. So it changes, of course. The Buzz Lightyear ride is the one I remember. Of course, it's a game. It's competitive. I remember like going back. I went twice while I was in college too. I remember like putting up damn near the perfect score in that game, and it was like so exciting to do so well at this thing that you sucked at as a kid. But man, it's really not even anything you do there. Like, it is the place. It is like Disney World, and as rich as this sounds, was my second home. Like, because that was a time when like I was there with family, and we looked forward to this family trip every year, sometimes a couple times a year. But like, that was the thing you looked forward to growing up. My brother is ready for the call.
Okay.
We'll do that.
Can't wait for this.
Let's just go to the call, and then after that we can recap real quick what all we picked for our all nostalgia team. Hey, so this is entirely random, but I told the story on the podcast, and they wanted me to call you and see if you remember it.
Okay.
So, growing up, do you remember we used to walk home from school?
Yeah.
Do you remember a song I made up that was mostly to annoy you, but also true?
I remember there was a song. Yes.
Do you think you'd recognize it?
It's potentially, yeah.
So it was, I need some water.
Yep.
Need lots of water.
Or I'm gonna die.
Wait, you even remember the way I sung it?
It's that famous song. It's like, I need some water.
Need lots of water.
Or I'm going to die. I'm like,
Do you know how young you were when that happened?
not good.
I'm thinking like that was elementary school. So at the oldest, you were in 3rd grade.
Yeah. Yeah. That.
All right. Do you guys have any questions I need to ask him?
No,
I'm good.
I'm just excited that he remembered it.
Chris, I
Same.
appreciate it.
I thought you were asking about the bowling. So, okay.
Oh, wait, what's the bowling ball story?
No, we'll have him on in a better way in the future for that. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
So who's older, you or him?
I am. I would. That's why I said I would have been in 6th grade at the oldest.
Okay.
Wow,
Oh,
I
that's
can't
great.
believe he
The fact
remembers.
that he remembers it is great.
How will that come through?
I'll clean it up. It should be okay. We'll make it work.
So.
I'm like blown away that not only he remembers it, but he remembers the way I sung it.
That's great. Like, you ruined his childhood. That's fantastic. Good for you.
Well done, V.
man.
Well done.
That just sent the podcast in a different direction. I don't know how to recover.
Oh,
All
my
right,
God.
so real quickly, everyone go through your all nostalgia teams. Paul, you were first. What was yours?
So mine was the 01-02 Red Wings. It was AC/DC, specifically Hell's Bells, and it was Mario Kart.
I had the Silverdome. I had menthol cigarettes in the summer air or the summer breeze. And then I had the Q of A parking lot.
And I went with Pokemon, Mr. Brightside by the Killers, and Disney World. That was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun.
Paul, thanks for joining us. Paul, once again, what is he, Strohs?
He is our Red Wings. What did you say? He's our Red
anything, man. You want to call him a correspondent?
Well, he's
an
the
expert?
Insider. He's the corresponding insider.
Insider means he has inside information.
He does. He's got more information than you and I.
All right.
Because
Well,
he's on the inside, B.
thanks for joining us, Paul, and I'm sure we'll have you on again in the future.
Hey,
Yeah, for sure.
follow
Thank-
Paul at PaulyMax7 and check out his work again. Paul, drop the line for who you write for. It is Overtime Heroics Hockey at hockey_OTH. Does a lot of fine work.
Yeah, go to overtimeheroics.net is the official URL. So go to that website and you'll find all of our work there. Go to the hockey section, search Detroit Red Wings. Most likely it'll be my article. We do have another Red Wings writer, but I have been doing a lot of writing lately. So,
All right. Thanks, Paul. I got to talk with Strohs about Stafford. I know you guys have very rough discussions about Stafford, so we're going to make that a private chat for now. But
Fair
of course, always welcome to weigh in on Twitter at Brendan Riley_ at Adam R. Strohs. Thanks again.
Love you,
thanks,
Paul.
guys. Love you too.
All right, so you were the one who brought up some concerns over Matt Stafford. You messaged me. You're like, I have I have some concerns about Stafford and the future. So,
so here's the thing. I'm not like in panic mode by any means, but I remain adamant that with a coaching change, I don't think this is a roster that should take a long time to be fun again. Let's put it that way. I don't think you need to root for a full-blown rebuild because even if you decided to move on from Stafford, he should get you something. But I got to tell you, Strohs, this version of Stafford through 4 weeks, he's the worst version of Stafford we've seen in a really long time.
He's not good.
I mean, his completion percentage so far, let me pull it up. His completion percentage is the worst it's been since 2014, and it is barely better. It is 0.3% better than 2014. The one thing that I think is particularly interesting, we know that the offensive line has been playing relatively well, especially compared to what Stafford's seen in his career. And somehow he's still being sacked more often than any year in his career. I don't think he looks good. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if the injury is bothering him. There's nothing I've seen to suggest that. I don't know if he's having trouble feeling pressure. I know that Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones aren't the greatest at creating separation, but both are great at contested catches. I will say he's not done any favors late in the game. The team likes to run the ball to death on first and second down, even when they're losing, apparently. But I'm telling, last year when Stafford was healthy, they were winning in spite of bad coaching because Matthew Stafford was that good. That's not the Matthew Stafford that's playing right now. I think if a good Matthew Stafford showed up last Sunday, they might have won. And I understand we both think it's better for them to lose. But the one thing I don't want to see, while I am hoping they lose games to see Patricia and Quinn gone, I want to see Matthew Stafford look good. That honestly, I would sacrifice losses to see Matthew Stafford look good because he's still young enough that the expectation should be you got 5 or 6 years more of him, or somebody else does. The point is Matthew Stafford should be a piece of an offense that somebody is excited about, whether it's the Lions or someone else. And if he goes a whole year looking like this, coming off of a back injury, I don't know that trading him's an option.
Yeah, I don't know what you'd be able to get for him for sure.
And I don't know how confident I am moving forward with him. And look, it's 4 weeks. Like I'm having a hard time not sounding dire here because it is only 4 weeks. And like, let's be clear, he showed up in the clutch against Arizona. And honestly, he showed up in the clutch against Chicago too. He's led 2 game-winning drives. One of them just had a drop touchdown.
Let me ask you this.
Through the game, this offense should be elite, and he's the reason it's not.
Let me ask you this. Because what we've seen last year through about 8 games, he looked really, really good. And I think we put our eggs in that basket for this team to take that next step. We thought that he was going to come back, he'd be healthy, and they would just kind of pick up where they left off sometime around week 7 of last year. And it really hasn't been the case. And you're right, they do like to run the ball to death. And maybe that takes him out of his rhythm. Maybe it makes him a little bit off. Do you think that, because this hasn't been, like through 4 games, this has been an absolutely dumpster fire of a season. Do you think maybe he's checked out a little bit? Maybe if there was to be some type of a coaching change, or maybe if there was supposed to be something happening at the top, maybe it revitalizes him. Maybe he comes out and he performs a little bit better, a little bit looser. I've been following what's been going on with Houston and their football team because amazingly they have an owner who apparently gives a shit, and they're like, look, we're not gonna settle for this. We're 0-4. I don't really know why they allowed Bill O'Brien to trade away DeAndre Hopkins, but that's neither here nor there. 0-4 just isn't cutting it. We're moving on, and then you have the players coming out, and I was reading this article from Bleacher Report where the players have come out and publicly said, hey, they didn't allow us to play fast and free. We always felt like anything we brought to the table was kind of squashed. We couldn't do what we know how to do because everything had to go through Bill O'Brien. Do you think that getting a different voice in the room might open Matt Stafford up a little bit more, allow him to play a little bit more free?
First of all, this is something that you're more prone to than me. I think that's a talking point. I remember when Matthew Stafford didn't care because he has kids. Like I
always thought that was funny.
But like that was a strong point for people.
Yeah.
And could there be something to everything he's gone through in his life recently? And then on top of that, speaking specifically about his wife's, it was brain cancer, wasn't it?
It wasn't specifically brain cancer. She had a tumor She had a tumor in her brain, but it wasn't cancerous.
But between that and more kids, and not that this is just him, but everybody's dealing with the pandemic. And look, football players are people. Dak Prescott told you how hard it's been for him. Stafford's not as open publicly. Is it possible that something mentally is giving him issues? Yes. I absolutely believe that part is possible. I think putting it on Matt Patricia is probably pretty unfair. This offense has never been one to look modern. Teams are just, I talked about it last week. They wouldn't let Stafford cook. They wouldn't go the route of Seattle and Green Bay. By the way, even when Matthew Stafford's playing bad, the answer is still to rely on Matthew Stafford because you have what should be a good quarterback in a league where passing is what wins games.
He is your best player on this team.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. The mental aspect could be part of it. Some of it could be the lack of preseason games, although I think that's concerning if that's what it is. And I also want to say this. He's had bad years in his career where he clearly stands out. He's not the player we're used to seeing. That being said, I'm concerned because of the timing. I'm concerned because of the age. And I'm concerned because it's so consistent. Like, it's not in and out. Like, whole games, he's struggling to hit guys in the right spot, to hit the right guys. And he's taken a lot of bad sacks this year. And he's been prone to the occasional bad sack. And I think you get a little bit of leeway on that when you've had bad offensive lines, you've had no running games, you've been forced to throw on 3rd and 15. You get a little bit of leeway. But, I mean, this guy, he's getting sacked on 9% of dropbacks right now, with the best offensive line pass block wise that he's maybe ever had. Yeah. And honestly, the first time since Reggie Bush that they've had a bit of a running game. And I don't know what's going on. Something's not right for Matthew Stafford through 4 weeks.
Do you think that maybe the offensive play design, the offensive play calling, you talked about how they like to run the ball a ton, and it doesn't usually put them in a great spot. So usually he's operating from a hole. Now, this is something I brought up with John on the Doc and Jock podcast that we do. I feel this is my take on it, and you tell me if there might be some validity here to why it's impacting Stafford. I feel like the offense is built to help support this defense. And what I mean by that is this defense is bend but don't break, right? So they're on the field a ton. It's one of those things where you don't force a ton of turnovers.
Bend but don't break gives up 5 straight touchdowns.
No, exactly. It's stupid if you ask me, but they're on the field a bunch. So in order to help rest these players, you need to chew up yards, and by doing that, you try to run the ball. You're trying to kind of
just rolled through the back of my fucking head. No, that's stupid.
I agree with you, but what I'm saying is that the defense, because of the defense, the offense has to play a certain way, and that maybe takes him out of it.
I believe that it's possible his rhythm is part of the issue, but rhythm doesn't explain MVP to worst he's ever played. I think you would struggle to find a 4-game stretch in his career where he's looked this bad. I don't say ever, but since Jim Caldwell's first year, like 2014. We're already going long, so I don't want to dig too deep into this. We'll dig deeper into it next week. Honestly, I'm okay with leaving it there. All I want to tell you is I'm officially concerned about Matthew Stafford. I think it's time. Let me do this real quick. I know you want to lose. Are you with me? Are you hoping to watch Matthew Stafford play better throughout the season?
So if I can get Matt Stafford to play better, but they still lose, yeah, I'm okay with that.
But you'd rather him look bad and they play bad?
I want this team
win a couple games.
I want this team to play. I want this team to lose games. So
I want them to play bad enough that Patricia and Quinn get fired, but I don't care about the draft pick. I would happily drop 7 or 8 draft spots to see Matthew Stafford look capable of being a franchise quarterback.
See, I'm not there.
That's crazy.
I want the value with the draft pick, and I want Stafford to look good enough to where you can get something in return for him. I'm hoping you can get your future quarterback, and you can somehow move him. Or you get your future quarterback and he sits for a year behind Stafford, and then you can move Stafford. So I'm not willing to sacrifice the draft position so Stafford looks good.
Being okay with your franchise quarterback falling apart in exchange for 8 draft picks, it sounds so incredibly short-sighted to me. But we will be...
Well, before we move on, what do you gain by Matt Stafford having a good season the year that they lose?
2 things. One, he can still be your franchise quarterback. He's 32, not 39.
Okay.
Two, if you decide to move on from him, you can get something out of it. Because here's the thing. If Matthew Stafford looks good, you can get a first from him, like comfortably. I think that's not enough. But if you drop 8 or 9 drafts, I would happily drop 8 or 9 draft spots and pick up a second first-round pick.
So this is what I'm saying. I want him to look good, but I still want the team to lose. He can go out there and he can put up a ton of numbers.
3 wins is losing and 5 wins is losing. I'm saying 5 or 6 wins is fine by me, as long as it gets them fired, and I do think it will.
Well, yeah. So here's the thing: 3 wins to 5 wins. That's fine. I'll get in that boat with you. I'm okay there because what's the difference between 3 to 5? Maybe 2 draft picks or maybe 2 draft spots.
Oh, I don't know. 3 to 5 could probably drop you as many as 5 spots.
I wonder. You know what? Since we're here, let me go to the interwebs and let me see what happened last year. Okay, Lions had 3 wins last year, right?
Yep.
What did the Dolphins do?
The Dolphins went 5-11.
So there you go. So it moves you from 3 to 5. I'm okay with that.
Who was 6th? The Giants?
The Chargers.
The Chargers went 5-11 too. Who was 7?
7 was Panthers.
I think they might have won the 6th game. The Panthers were 5-11. See, it now it comes down to tiebreakers, but it can drop you a little further than you think.
It does. So let's see. Let's check out what Arizona was. So Arizona was
5-10-1.
Holy cow! So that was that tie that put them over. So that is the threshold right there.
But
so,
still,
you
could fall as many as 5 spots with 2 wins.
You could.
Are you comfortable with that?
It becomes a very dangerous game to play.
So you're not sure.
I'm definitely not sure.
Okay.
So this is what I would have told you, right? So if you're like in that 3 to 6 range, I like that. Maybe even 3 to 7, I'm okay with it because I feel like this draft is going to be really, really heavy with good QB talent, and I think you could
be probably 3
solid quarterbacks.
Well, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and Trey Lance will probably all be first-round draft picks.
Do you think Trey Lance is going to go early or late though?
I think that he's going to be a first-round draft pick. And where you get drafted in the first round has to do with the teams that want quarterbacks.
I gotcha. I don't know. I find him to be the curveball in this upcoming draft. It's so weird, man, because he looks like he's got everything that you want from a modern quarterback, right? So you want your quarterback to be similar to Lamar. You want your quarterback to be similar to Patrick Mahomes. He looks like he has all of it, but I don't feel like the competition he's gone up against has been great. He's played only 1 game this year. That was basically there so he could showcase his talent for the NFL. That's going to be weird, man. A lot is going to be made of his combine.
First-round pick. It might be late, but I think he'll be a first-round pick.
Yeah. I mean, I could see it. I won't argue you that he probably will be a first-round pick. So, I don't know. It's weird because that could really think about that, right? So, you're saying you're comfortable with Matt Stafford playing good enough to where this team will be drafting.
Not just comfortable. I want them to.
We'll go by last year's standards, 8 or 9. And
I'm more concerned about
out
you
on
already have a franchise quarterback. You have one.
But you also agree that you have to move on.
What was that?
You also agree that
no,
with the new regime, you probably have to move on, right?
No, I don't. I don't think you ever have to move on. I'm willing to move on.
Okay.
Having to move on from a 32-year-old franchise quarterback is dumb. I'm willing to move on. And here's the thing. If he performs well, you give that regime the choice. Hey, this is a franchise quarterback. You want to move on from him, fine. But we're going to judge you based on that. If you want to stick with him, awesome. You already got a franchise quarterback. We're going to judge you based on that. If he's not a franchise quarterback, you're sticking the regime on a much tougher playing field. Like, I want you to make that choice. I definitely don't think you have to. I think that's foolish.
Okay. All right, I got you. I needed some clarity from where you were coming at with it.
Well,
so
one way or the other, we will definitely talk about Stafford again, because if he has me feeling better, we'll talk about it. If he doesn't, we're going to have to talk about it. I just wanted it on record. 4 games in, I'm concerned. I'm not panicked. I'm concerned. That's going to do it on this one, I think. You got anything else?
No, we're good.